So for our career insight today at Kingston Green Academy, we would love to introduce Emma Wheeler, body confidence and mindset coach. And pupils at the school, we've requested for a therapist or a coach to come and speak to us because there are some pupils here that are interested in that line. And before we go over to Emma, Ben, do you want to say a little bit about what you're thinking of doing?
I think I might want to become a therapist when I'm older. I'm just quite interested in how the brain works and how all the mental health and that goes on. Yeah, and Stevie?
I was looking into being an occupational therapist and going into psychiatry and psychology as well.
Okay. So, yeah. Great. So Emma, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We would love to hear more about what it entails to be a body confidence and mindset coach.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. It's really lovely to be here. Yeah, so I do two jobs actually. So I'm a body confidence and mindset coach, which is a self-employed role. And then I also work for a charity, a mental health charity, where I'm an inclusion coach, and I support people with diagnosed and undiagnosed mental health conditions on the road to recovery. So so both of those marry beautifully together and complement each other. So I do a bit of each. So I became a body confidence and mindset coach from, I used to be a personal trainer, and I am from that I got a really good understanding of how the body works, and nutrition and sleep and stress, and realized actually when people are trying to lose weight, it's so much more than just losing weight. There's a lot going on underneath of why they reach for food. Often there's some sort of core belief, or sometimes they're not good enough, or they can't connect with themselves or with others. So I moved from the personal training to the coaching, which I absolutely love, and I coach business owners to become more productive through healthy habits, essentially. Because if you're trying to, whether you're trying to work for somebody or run your own business, if you're not looking after yourself, that will be mirrored in your work, because that will show up in your work. So first and foremost, you need to be looking after yourself. So that's how I came to do what I do in a nutshell.
That's great. Thank you, Emma. I think Ben is going to kick us off with a question over here.
Yeah. What was your career path and what made you choose to do what you do?
My career path, so I've only done this line of work for about 6 years. So prior to that, I was a stay-at-home mum, and before that I actually ran a preschool, so quite different. But I led to being a personal trainer because I really enjoyed exercising, I enjoyed healthy living, so I turned a passion into a career, and then it evolved into coaching because I found that I was talking to people much more and listening rather than helping them exercise. So that's how it evolved into coaching, and that's where my heart really lies. And so it's working on a much deeper level with people. So that's how I kind of fell into it, let's say.
Well, that's interesting. So you didn't have this vision when you were younger, that it kind of came as you went through different careers?
Yeah, I think I mean, I probably have always been somebody who's a good listener, because to be a coach, you really, listening is one of the key skills, and fairly empathetic with people, I suppose. So I have the skills, but as human beings, we often pivot from one job to another. There's no reason why we need to stay in the same job all the time. So yeah, it wasn't a calling that I had when I was younger, for sure. No. I wanted to be loads of things when I was younger. I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be a midwife, I wanted to be a solicitor.
Yeah, sounds similar to lots and lots of people, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it? May, do you want to ask you a question?
Yeah. What does your average working day look like?
Well, the beauty of my average working day is I'm in control of my own diary, which is nice. It's for me, I think it's so important that you look after yourself when you're doing this line of work, whether you're a coach or whether you're a therapist, a counsellor. I don't know if some of you are doing psychology and whether you've learned about vicarious trauma yet, and if you do, but it's taking on other people's trauma. acting as if it's happened to you. And so it's really, really important that you look after yourself, which means not filling your diary with loads of stuff. So so for me, what does my day look like? For me, there's always some movement at the beginning of the day, so I always do some sort of exercise. I find that's a really good starter to my day. And then I see probably 3 to 4 clients a day, sometimes via Zoom, sometimes we might meet in a cafe, depending on whether it's too sensitive of the conversation to talk about. Sometimes I'll meet in their homes. And we'll talk about I'm very client led, but for my coaching I do have a program, but it is intuitively guided by the coach, by the client rather. But I have sort of 4 pillars of coaching as such. So the first one is gaining the awareness of what we're doing and what we need to change. That the second one is then the knowledge, so coaching them and giving the client the tools and skills they need, and the knowledge to change the way of being. And then the third one is all about starting at your new habits, as it were, and how you're intending to live your life. And then the last one is about maintenance, trust and belief. So it's trusting in themselves, and it's about believing in themselves and how they're going to maintain this way of living from now on. And that's not to say that they're not going to have bad days, because of course they do have bad days, of course they do. But it's how, when you have a bad day, how you can get yourself back in a good place. So the coaching has 4 different pillars that I take the client on a journey through, essentially over 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually in with career guidance, you know, there's different different kind of theories and practices that you can put into the work that you do with adults or young people. So those pillars, are they something that you've come up with, or is that like a theory that coaches often use that you see with that kind of support?
Yeah, so it's a theory that coaches often use. There are 3 or 4 pillars to coaching, but then once you've trained as a coach, you can then have your own bespoke pillars, because it depends on what you're coaching on. So somebody I can't remember your name, said about doing psychotherapy. So what your USP is, I suppose, you know, your unique selling point. So I tend to coach business women, predominantly mums, but some people might be an addiction counsellor or addiction therapist, or you might be you could be a business coach. You could be there's lots of, you know, so many different coaches out there. There's coaches for teenagers, coaches for menopausal women, you know, there's all sorts of things. So obviously your pillars are going to be bespoke to your clients, and what they need.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think? Yeah, got lots of nods here. Imi, over to you.
If someone was wanting to follow a similar career path to you, what qualifications would you say it's useful having?
So definitely, if you could do psychology A level, or you can do the equivalent of the BTEC, where you can do psychology, psychology, law and criminology would be a good one. And then it's a psychology at university would be a really good start. The thing is, even if you don't go into coaching or therapy, the understanding your human brain and human behavior is going to serve you really well in whatever line of work you go into, because so much of people's issues is not understanding how the brain works. So I would say to do psychology. You can also do bespoke coaching qualifications. My personal training was all about included mindset and confidence, so that's what I've done. So that incorporated all of the coaching with it. But yeah, so there's lots of different routes. But I would say definitely, you know, psychology to start off with. It's quite sciencey, it's quite mathematical, it's quite heavy going as far as I know, certainly for the A level. but the BTEC then might be more suited. But that's what I would say to go into. And there are so many books you can read. There are so many podcasts, which is a great way to learn as well, because we know so much more about how the brain works now. We know so much more about how things to do with if you're thinking about the law of attraction, and how we understand so much more that we are all energetic fields vibrating at certain frequencies. What you project out, you get back. And so the more you can read about it, and the more podcasts you can listen to, the better, to get a good grounding and foundation for your knowledge beforehand.
That's really useful to know. And when we're looking at kind of profiles for psychologists, and the university pathway as well as looking at different types of apprenticeships you can go in and working through the job, a lot of the university routes, it's really advised to get the accredited university degree, and there's certain therapist roles or psychologist roles that require the degree. With being a coach and setting up your own business, did you have to have that degree, or have you come from a different angle and it's not necessary? It's only in certain particular roles that's necessary.
So coaching isn't actually accredited. So coaching therapists and counselling are, but coaching isn't actually accredited. So anyone could be a coach if they wanted to, but that's not, obviously you're not going to be a very good coach if you haven't got that knowledge. So it is one of those sort of loopholes in the business, but that obviously might change as time goes on. So yeah, coaching is different to therapy and counselling, where you do need to be accredited and you do need to do that specific qualification. I would still definitely, because if you do a coaching qualification, you will be coached as well. You are coached then, and until you've been coached, you don't really, you're not seeing it from the client's perspective. And it also opens up lots of it opens your eyes to the way you behave and the way you do the things that you do. And I don't know if you've talked about in psychology, but you'll become quite aware of. So there's what's called the theta state, which is it's most likened to when you're kind of falling asleep and you're conscious of things going around you, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to answer. So the theta state is predominantly from 7 under, but it goes up to about 10, where you absorb all those conditionings and the beliefs from your parents, that you absorb them all, and they then become your beliefs, and they aren't necessarily your beliefs. So just for an example, your mum and dad might have always used the phrase, money doesn't grow on trees. So you've heard that so many times, you then grow up thinking, well, there's never enough money around. Money is hard to come by, because you were told that. And until you're really coached and your eyes have been open to that way of thinking, and you don't really then get it from the client's perspective. So I think it's important that if you do a coaching qualification, you will then be coached. So of course, then you can see it from the client's perspective. You'll understand the reasons why you behave the way you do, which then, of course, you can then help other people identify those core beliefs, those triggers, whatever might be holding them back. Because that's what for me, I do a lot of work on people's blocks and resistances to why they resist the things they do, and it normally goes back to some sort of belief from years ago.
That's so interesting. And actually, you're bringing back memories of an old housemate I used to have that changed career and became a counsellor, and she had to open up boxes that she had closed years before and just talk about them, because she had to be kind of able to deal with that herself before she could go on and coach other people and be able to put herself in their position. So is that kind of similar to what you're talking about, the being comfortable with yourself as well, like if you're going to become somebody else's coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the charity I work for, Rethink, one of the things that they require is that you've got lived experience. They like you to have some sort of lived experience, because then you know what it's like for that person. So, you know, from that point of view, you know, I could be dealing with somebody who's got PTSD, or I could be dealing with somebody who's got bipolar, or I could be dealing with somebody who's going through a divorce, or they've had some, you know, they've had a death in the family. So if you've got that lived experience, or you have been coached, you can then you can not just sympathize, but you can empathize with the client. But also, it's about walking your talk, isn't it, as well? So, you know, you if you've done the work on yourself and you recognize why you behave the way you do, then you can then recognize it for others easier. Although coaching, you know, the difference with coaching and therapy and counseling is much more about working on the past, and it's much more about guiding the client into helping them heal their past, whereas coaching is much more about looking forward, and it's much more about empowering the client to think of those ideas themselves. And not, so when you're so you know, we're not mentoring, we're not telling them what's the best way to do it. We're coaching them to empower them to come out with their own ideas using their own intuition. Which obviously we've all got our own intuition, but it's very, very hard to use your intuition when we live in this world of constant sort of stimulation from other people, from the internet, from telly, from, you know, all sorts of things, all sorts of places. So there is a slight difference in the two two areas, I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Ben?
What's your favourite part of your job?
My favourite part of my job, seeing people achieve. It's just absolutely, you know, it gives me goosebumps to see people do things that they never thought they would be able to do. Just completely fills me up, you know, to coach somebody who perhaps can't, you know, maybe they might be quite anxious, they can't even go to a shop when it's busy, but to do that on their own and how proud they feel themselves is amazing. So just witnessing the shifts in people, that it is phenomenal. It's such a rewarding job. Yeah, it's just amazing to see people, and then when they finish with me, you know, they're in a completely different place, they've got a completely different mindset. It's just phenomenal. It's really rewarding job. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to lie, it can be hard, but it's rewarding.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
May?
How do you find your clients?
How do I find
Your clients?
the clients? Well, when I became a coach, one of the things I was coached on is working with people that are aligned to you, that I am the right person for. So I don't say yes to everybody. Somebody might come to me and they might and they want to coach with me, and actually I know we're not a good fit. And it took me a while to be able to say no to people, but I will say no to people and say that actually we're not a good fit. And I will recommend somebody else, so that I only work with people that I'm aligned with. You know, we all align with our own tribe. There's tons of coaches out there, but there's tons of people as well, and your clients are out there for you. And how do I find those clients? It's a mixed bag. I'll be completely honest. It's a mixed bag. You know, some people can be really frustrating because they won't try new things. They want to change, but they still put in those blocks and those resistances in. So it's finding different tools to motivate them. And then some people are game to try anything. So yeah, it's a real mixed bag. I become very fond of them and quite close to people. When you work with people for you know, anywhere between 3 to 6 months, it's generally 12 weeks. I work with people for my self-employed work. It's 6 months with my with the mental health charity. You get to know somebody quite well in that time.
With the private practice, do you find that people they come to you through your Facebook or through your website, and are they willing to pay? Like, are people willing to invest in themselves, do you find?
So that can be quite tricky. People will be very reluctant to pay out for things for themselves, especially women. that's probably my biggest hurdle, is getting people to realise, me taking them from A to B, how worth that investment is. And actually, you know, if you did a coaching qualification and you went down the self-employed route, you would be taught how to market your business, how to get over the you know, charge your worth. Because if you think about the difference you're making to those people, it's absolutely right that you're charging what you're worth. Which can come down a bit to your money mindset as well. So in a coaching qualification, they would work on your money mindset and feeling comfortable charging what you're worth. But people are reluctant to spend money on themselves in that way. They will be happier to go out and get drunk in the pub, or go out and buy a load of clothes or whatever. But when it comes to things like well-being, that's why at the moment, with the cost of living, it is quite worrying how people will stop investing in themselves. And it's so important that they don't stop investing in themselves. Stop other things, not looking after yourself.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? I think Ben's got a question that leads on from that, actually.
What do you find better, being self-employed or working for a business?
Oh yeah, interesting question, really interesting. And this is one thing that I've worked on actually a lot, because when I was younger, I used to really admire people who are self-employed. I used to think, oh, they've made it. And I'm really recognise that that's what I thought, and that has still stayed with me, and that's not a belief that serves me anymore. Because obviously there's swings and roundabouts is the answer. Being self-employed, you are constantly thinking about it, doing stuff for it, marketing. You know, unless you're in a position that you can outsource all of it, which obviously you need the funds to do it, you are a jack of all trades. And then obviously you need to think about the legalities as well. So I've got public liability insurance in case anything happens. But it's very rewarding when it's your own job, your own business. Self-employed, obviously you don't have any of that. You don't need to worry about any of your insurance, your tax return, things like that. And you get to meet other people, because being self-employed is obviously quite isolating. So you need to do a certain amount of networking. I think it's just doing what's right for you. You know, everybody works differently. You know, as human beings, we like connection. We generally, you know, we are pack animals, but some people, you know, like more connection than others. I would probably say that I wouldn't go self-employed straight away. I would get some experience employed and then think about going self-employed. But as I say, it's got to be what's right for you. So for me, it is real swings and roundabouts. There's pros and cons to both. So I don't prefer either. It's just, yeah, they both got advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. You're thinking, Ben?
I think, yeah, I agree. Starting working for a business, and if it feels right, move on to self-employed.
Maybe later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's from experience.
Yeah, and you talking about experience, actually, we've probably got time for one last question, which I think leads on to a question that Stevie's got.
What work experience would you recommend for our age group to do to like get into therapy more?
What work experience? So charities are always crying out for people to come and help. You probably need to be over 18, I think, maybe over 16. You know, like I say, I work for Rethink. There's lots of charities around that are always looking for volunteers. So getting some experience in charities would be really good. If you wanted to come back to me, you can always sit in on a call, as long as the client is quite happy for you to sit on a call. You can always contact me. I'm happy for you to have my details. So that would be good experience. If you could get the NHS, is obviously, I mean, they are seriously stretched, the NHS at the moment in the mental health world, but you might be able to get experience in the NHS sitting in, you know, maybe with a psychotherapist, possibly. It could be quite sensitive. So again, it all depends whether the clients are happy to. So anything like that. And again, even if it's not practical experience, reading, podcasts, reading. I mean, there's some really good, Jay Shetty's a really good, that's a good podcast you could listen to. You know, there's some phenomenal books. I can always go back and I can email them to Catherine, some good books I would recommend. But yeah, that's what I would say. You know, try charities, NHS. Yeah, just maybe even Facebook. You could just you know, see if anyone's in it would offer some work experience.
Wow, that's great. Stevie, what you're going to do first out of all that?
Probably like volunteering in more so like charity things and like in that sector, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good. And thank you so much for that really kind offer from you. And if anyone's listening to this after and wants to know more information from you, or perhaps actually wants to have some coaching, like what's the best way to get in touch? Is it your website or your Facebook page?
Yeah, website. Most of my business does come from my Facebook page or networking, but either one of those. My email is emmawheeler200@gmail.com. Yeah, and either the Facebook page or my website, both of those, you'll reach me. Yeah.
And that's Emma Wheeler is your name on your Facebook page, is it?
That's the name on my Facebook page. Yeah.
Perfect. Brilliant. So any more questions from this end? No. So a huge thank you. I think, how did you find that?
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad it was useful.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. And we'll give you a big round of applause.
Thank you. I hope you weren't too nervous.
Thank you very much.